You have given a beautiful speech on South Sudan and the opportunities for businesses to go in there. I had a small question. You thought about the oil. Why is the oil a curse to South Sudan?
Thank you very much, and thank you for your interest in South Sudan. Yeah, of course, South Sudan is one of the oil producing countries, but the oil was discovered at the time South Sudan was still under the Sudan. And because most of the oil lies in South Sudan, and that is one of the reasons why South Sudan and the Sudan went into a serious fight, because the oil money was never used to develop South Sudan. The oil money was used to develop other parts of Sudan. So the people of South Sudan say, how can we have a resource that never improves us? And that is one of the reasons why there was this long war to get, it is the war for resources. Now, the other thing is the oil, of course, is being mined by other companies, not the Sudanese company nor South Sudanese company. So these other companies, like the Chinese company, they have long-term investment in the oil. The government had to loan the money from them. So most of the money is still going to paying what the government had loaned, what the Sudan government had loaned, and not South Sudan government. So in that way, why do you have a resource which you cannot use? The community thinks it was because of the oil that many people were killed. It is because of the oil that there's a lot of fight. Even the Sudan, after separating with South Sudan, is still wanting to have control over the Sudan because of the oil. The oil passes through the Sudan, the pipelines, and they are increasing the transition fee every time.
Okay. And I have a small question. Can we shift this curse into a blessing? Because I understand there is a high potential in this oil to we're trying to benefit Africa, and there's a lot of partnerships you can find to change this curse into a blessing.
Definitely they can shift, but it needs a lot of political will, particularly from the Sudan, because it is the Sudan that now holds the oil. As their major GDP now comes from the oil of the South. So unless there is a political will for them to let go, that this is now a different country with its own resources, it's going to be very difficult to have the oil as a resource that will help the people. Secondly, the country South Sudan, since God created it, had been in war. First fighting the British, because when the British wanted to give the independence of the Sudan, the South Sudan said, we don't know the North. They are Arabs, we are the Africans. They are Muslims, we are Christians. You had never given us opportunity to mix. So we don't know each other. So how can we be ruled by the people we don't know? So they started the first war. But the British did not listen. If they listened, the oil would have been now a blessing.
And the wars ended, and South Sudan is a new country with new opportunities, but also new challenges. How does South Sudan how does South Sudan stand in a new shift from aid development to a more trade and business development cooperation?
After the independence of South Sudan in the year 2011, South Sudan started picking up very well, and actually the government was saying, because we have all the opportunities to produce for ourselves, we should now begin to work on production rather than receiving aid. But unfortunately, in December 2013, there was another paradigm shift where a small war again broke out between the president, the government, and the former vice president. So now it has returned South Sudan again to aid. But with all that going, the aid is only going in 3 states of the 10 states of South Sudan. The others remaining 7 states, the government insists they should produce and sustain themselves. So the idea of aid, we don't like it. We would like people to come and support the farmers to produce not only for the household, because now farmers only produce for the household. We want them to produce for the household, for the local market, and beyond.
Okay. So, can you give us a last example of a new sector that's really that needs a priority to invest in South Sudan right now?
infrastructure is the most, because if you don't have roads that link farmers to the market, even if they produce, they cannot bring their food. As you heard, Akinyi was talking, actually we have 9 months of rain and 3 months of dry season. Infrastructure is the most important thing that the government needs to invest in, and this is what the government is working towards too. Secondly, then we have the power, the hydroelectricity, we have the water, because we have the falls. So after the roads, we need the power, because even investment, if you want to have a value chain of what you produce, you need to have electricity to produce the additional value from the crops.
And of course, there are risks for companies who want to invest, because how solid is the peace in South Sudan?
Peace at the moment, I must be honest, is a bit unstable, but it's only unstable in 3 of the 10 states. The remaining 7 states are very stable, so people can still invest. The Equatoria, which is linking to Uganda, Kenya, and DRC, are completely in peace, and it is part of the most fertile land. So I challenge people to come and see for themselves, and they will be attracted to invest.